Spider-Man was my introduction to the world of superheroes. I remember that as a child, I would wake up early just so that I could watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films before heading to school. This coming from a student that was constantly late in the morning for sleeping in. This movie had a life-changing impact on me. From that moment on, Spider-Man became more than just a fictional character. He became someone I looked up to, a person I aspired to be, to look for good in people and give second chances to those that don't deserve it. For all intents and purposes, he became my hero. I'm sure to no one's surprise, I've played every single Spider-Man game on console starting from the PS1 era moving forward, not to mention some handheld games and even a flip phone mobile game. There are two games that left huge impact on me. The first being Spider-Man 2 for the PS2 with its physics-based web swinging, but more importantly to me was the spider sense. At the time, most games didn't have a dodge mechanic. You would either jump away from an attack, and if you were lucky, you could dash away. But in Spider-Man 2, you had multiple dodge animations depending on where the attack came from. It wasn't perfect, but for a PS2 game, it was pretty damn close. Jumping forward to the era of the PS3 came Web of Shadows. Your webs didn't always connect to buildings, but it was still physics-based to a certain extent. As for the spider sense, you still had it, but you were back to having to move manually out of the way, unlike in Spider-Man 2. However, this was the game that made my 15-year-old self truly feel like Spider-Man. The combat in Web of Shadows is by far, till this day, my favorite combat system for any Spider-Man game. For those of you who do not know, in Web of Shadows, depending on what suit you were wearing, your combat style would change. When in red, Spidey's attacks are fast and precise, perfect for taking down a single target swiftly. As for the black suit, your attacks were more chaotic, sending out massive tendrils, allowing you to hit multiple foes at the same time. The changes to combat applied themselves on all three of your combat forms. Yes, I said three, because in Web of Shadow you could fight on the land, in the air, and even on the goddamn wall. But wait, there's more, because you could freely change suit mid-attack without resetting your combo, allowing for insane combos and leaving a ton of room for creativity. Even after beating the game, I would go back just so I could style on my enemies. Unfortunately, that was it for me. Every Spider-Man game that came out afterwards was a disappointment. And yes, I played and beat them before passing judgment on them, even Spider-Man Friend or Foe. And with the movies coming out and no movie tie-in games to go with them, I had lost hope, to the point I started buying the comics just to get that Spider-Man fix. But nothing could fill the void that Spider-Man 2 and Web of Shadow had left behind. When I was ready to give up, that's when Insomniac came out of nowhere with Spider-Man 2018 for the PS4. We had lost the physics-based web swinging, but had gained so much more. Taking note from the Arkham series, they implemented free-flow combat, web swing animations, air tricks, movie-like cutscenes, and a story to back it up. Let's not forget the return of the spider sense dodge like in Spider-Man 2. What truly set it apart from its predecessors was a gadget wheel which simply gave you so many options. Even with simpler combat than in Web of Shadows, the way you could tackle a problem felt infinite. Truly a great addition to Spidey's arsenal. With the way things ended in Spider-Man PS4, all I could do was wait for Insomniac Spider-Man 2. After 3 DLCs and a spin-off game starring Miles Morales, we finally got Spider-Man 2 for the PS5 on October 20th, 2023. I'm just some guy on the internet, and here's my review for Insomniac Spider-Man 2 for the PS5. Spoiler warning, this review assumes that you have played the game, so there will be story spoilers for those of you who do not. Spoiler warning, this review assumes that you have played the game, so there will be story spoilers for those of you who do not wish to be spoiled. You can skip the story by going to this timestamp.
The story. The story is about 10 months after the events of Miles Morales. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section down below. We find out that Pete has a job at Vision Academy, which Miles attends. Unfortunately for Pete, on the very first day of class, Sandman decides to go on a rampage, making Pete have to choose between his job and being Spider-Man. As always, he chooses to work for the greater good and chooses Spider-Man. The game has an amazing opening and immediately throws you into a bombastic fight with Sandman, switching between the younger and the older. They masterfully use the moments to bring about this tutorial, introducing the web wings and new combat abilities. The best part, the new additions make sense story-wise. After the encounter with Sandman, things slow down. We get to see the impact the last 2 years has had on our characters. Peter taking over the mortgage from his late Aunt May, MJ now working for JJ, and Miles, who is trying to figure out what to write for his college essay, whilst finding out that his mother is moving on from his late father. All hope is not lost as Harry comes back into the picture and offers us a great trip down memory lane in a gameplay segment, where we get to play as teenage Pete and we are privy to a defining moment in their friendship. To my surprise, the story of Pete and Miles run much more parallel to each other than expected, which is something I appreciated. We see Miles struggles to balance his student life and his spider life, while Pete is getting to enjoy reuniting with an old friend, which unfortunately is short-lived. The story's a bit slow to start, but once it picks up, we're going a mile a minute. It's not too long before we go from street-level crimes to full symbiote takeover. And this is where I have the issue with the story. We get to see Harry become Agent Venom, which, by the way, is amazing. However, it lasts one mission. I would have appreciated a bit more time as the Spider Pals. I understand why they did it from a gameplay perspective. They want to put the black suit in their hands as fast as possible, which is appreciated. Personally, I would have liked more time to develop the bond between Peter and Harry. The same is true for Venom. Once the city is venomized and Harry is free, we don't get a lot of screen time of Venom. I would have liked them to take more time showing just how dangerous he is and could become. Maybe instead of venomizing the entire city in one go, we could have the state of the city progressively get worse as we're trying to find him. Side note, swinging in the venomized city of New York was the coolest thing I did while playing the game. I'm really hoping that it will be an option in the day weather settings. Please add this to the game. As for Kraven, I loved him as an antagonist. He was an excellent choice for a villain to bring out the monster in Peter. The way he almost succeeds is believable, and part of me almost wishes he did. Insomniac, keep doing what you're doing with these villains. I know some people wanted Kraven to be Venom, but that doesn't really make sense to me. Kraven is looking for a place to die, a warrior's death. Venom is trying to survive and propagate. Their existence and interests are in direct opposition. As cool as it may have been having Kraven as Venom, simply wouldn't make sense narratively. With its shorter runtime, we find ourselves at the end of the game, and I have to say I loved every minute of it. When they have you fighting Venom in the high school football field, it made every moment feel epic. I do find it odd that Miles got the final fight with Venom, but I don't think it ruined the story in any way. With Venom defeated, Harry in a coma, and Norman blaming Spider-Man, we have reached our destination. With a surprising twist, we have Peter going into semi-retirement for a while and Miles picking up the mantle and becoming the one and only Spider-Man. For the time being, of course. I have to say that as much as I love this ending, it is still bittersweet. I am happy that Peter is finally getting to be Peter Parker for a while, but I am sad to see him leave. The end of the game has us feeling hopeful for the future of the Spider-Man and the franchise. For anyone who doesn't know, please watch the after credits scene. There is a great tease as to where the franchise is heading.
Combat. Short story, the combat is a direct improvement for the last two games. Now for the real review. Right off the bat, they do not make us relearn all the skills from the previous game. Point launcher and the uppercut are skills you already have unlocked, and can I take a second to say thank you. However, there are some attacks that you have to relearn, but they are improved versions of the OG skills. The web disarm in SM 2018 would have you tap triangle to yank out the enemy's weapons from their hand, which took time, leaving you open for an attack. Now the Spider Pals can pull a weapon away in about a second and send it flying right back at them. They have given the web yank ability more depth than ever before. You can slam enemies into each other or even slam them straight down, making dispatching enemies even quicker than before if you use your gadget skillfully. Speaking of skills, this time around we have 3 skill trees, one for each spider and one shared between both. All combat and traversal abilities can be found in the shared tree. However, if you want to unlock new abilities, you have to invest points in each Spider-Man. Luckily, XP is shared between both, so you won't have to get to level 60 twice, which again is very appreciated. Some of the abilities you gain are locked behind a simple skill point, while others are given to you during a certain story mission. Miles has a total of 8 abilities which can all be upgraded. Pete has 10 which can also be upgraded except for 2 of them, which I find very weird because when you get to level 60, you have 2 skill points left over, which is quite annoying, but I digress. What I dislike about the way the abilities is that each ability is assigned to a button that you can't change. You can mix and match old and new abilities, i.e. symbiote powers and spider claws, but you can't have 2 X abilities, you have to choose one of them. I don't know why they decided to go down this route because it definitely gets in the way of creativity and replayability. As a DMC player, I had a bunch of crazy combo ideas, but unfortunately I can't do them. If anyone at Insomniac sees this, please don't put that in the next game. Now that we've spoken about abilities, let's talk about the gadgets in-game. Many people complain that there are way less gadgets in this game than in the last, which is true. However, I'm a huge fan of this change. In 2018's game, you could wipe out an entire enemy mob without even throwing a single punch, because your gadgets, when maxed out, were truly broken. Now your gadgets are more meant as a way to set yourself up and to help you get out of a messy situation. And you will find yourself in many sticky situations because this time around, the bosses and enemies are much harder. I have beaten most Soulsborns and both God of Wars on the hardest difficulty and completed no damage boss runs. All this to say, Spider-Man 2 had me legitimately focusing during certain encounters and dying quite a few times. This added difficulty is part due to smarter and more aggressive AI, but also because of the parry system and the Fury attack. I am ashamed to say this, but those blue Fury attacks got me by surprise a few times. The parry timing was a little confusing at first, but with some practice, it's fairly easy to master on the normal difficulty. If you're having difficulty with it, there's an option in the settings menu to increase the timing window. However, if you increase the timing for the parry, you also increase the dodge, so keep that in mind. With all of the improvements to combat and the added skills, something had to give. Unfortunately, the stealth system. Stealth is pretty much non-existent in this game. There are no stealth upgrades for either Spider-Man except for one item that improves Miles' first strike while in stealth. And the worst thing is you can complete the whole game without even getting the item. I remember on my first playthrough I finished all of Miles' side content and got it after I had already beaten the last boss, making it pretty useless in the endgame, which we're going to get into momentarily. Last thing about combat would be the MJ missions. When I heard they were bringing them back, I was so disappointed. I was just thinking about having to go through those missions again on repeat playthroughs, and I was not looking forward to it. Can I just say that I have never been so happy to be wrong? The MJ missions don't feel intrusive, shorter, and actually has you feeling like a badass at the end of it all. Hats off to you, Insomniac. Traversal, environment, side content. The movement in this game is buttery smooth like no other. I have never had so much fun moving from point A to point B in any game ever. The addition of the web wings is a 10 out of 10 for me. I was worried that I would end up always relying on the web wings, but when you realize that it's actually faster if you use all of Spidey's movement tools is amazing. I'll be keeping it short because no words can describe how much fun moving in this game was. Fun side note, if you think that swinging is too easy, there is a slider for how much swinging assistance you want. I think 4 is a very nice setting for those of you who are interested, and if you want that Spider-Man 2 feel, you can turn it down to 0. Environment, simply put, power of the PS5, locked at a smooth 60 FPS, no stutter, nor lag, or pop-in. And did I mention that ray tracing is on by default? It is a direct improvement from its predecessor. As for the side content, there is much less in this game than in 2018 version, which is good and bad at the same time. The former almost felt like a collectathon on par with Mario, and some of the side quests kind of felt pointless and had no impact. This time around, there are fewer side missions, but they are all fantastic except for a few, but even the ones I don't like are still well made. This time around, we have one type combat challenge, which is always fun. However, you can only do them as Miles, which is annoying. The race challenges have been swapped for chase sequences, which is great, but they can only be done once. There are strictly web wing traversals, which is disappointing. With so many traversal options, I would have loved a challenge where I had to use all of my traversal abilities. Hopefully, this will be added in future content. Same goes for enemy bases. Once they've been completed, that's it, that's all. Which brings me to my biggest disappointment in the game. There is no endgame. Once you beat the game, that's it. I am hoping that they will add something of sorts with the New Game Plus update coming out later this year. Final thoughts. The story was great, the emotional beats hit. They had me invested in all the characters and showed us how the Insomniac verse is different from the 616. In the Insomniac verse, there are lasting consequences. When people die, they're gone for good. I think giving Spider-Man and Venom an emotional connection was a brilliant idea. I just wish they had given Harry and Peter relationships more time to develop. The combat is fast and fluid, a direct improvement from the previous game. I think the next logical step for them to take is to start developing a combo string with the triangle button. Please give me a 4-hit combo with the web yank. Allow me to mix and match square and triangle, allowing more combat creativity. Lastly, give us the freedom to slot abilities the way we want them to. The game may be lacking in side content, but all of the content is quite polished, going for a quality over quantity approach. The short of it is the game is great, an instant buy for me. It is pretty much a direct improvement from the last 2 games, however it is on the shorter side of things. I was able to 100% the game in 14 hours, which I know is faster than average, but I could not put my controller down. And by no means am I a speedrunner, I was just really enjoying myself, and before I knew it, the game was done and I had nothing left to do. If game length is important to you, I'd suggest you wait until the New Game Plus update and possible future DLC. If you want a good solid game that is on the shorter side, it's a no-brainer. I hope this review helped you make a decision, and if it didn't, remember, I'm just some guy on the internet. Thanks for watching, please like, share, and subscribe. Alrighty, for those of you who made it to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you. Let me know that you got to the end by putting Spider-Man in the comment section down below. This is my first video on the channel, and to many more videos in the future. I don't really know how to end this, so I'm just going to end it off by saying swag out. Thank you.